Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's a bit of a green week for me. Sort of pushed on towards the end of the week yesterday, really, with the Jackson Hole speech. It sort of seemed to push pretty much everything on in the markets, but yeah, gold and silver and crypto in particular. So I'm up 5.6% for the week, which is pretty good. Um, Not made any deposits, and I still haven't done anything with the Vale cash. Sort of thinking that I've maybe done this a little bit late and missed out on sort of probably the bottom, but don't know. Still shouldn't sort of anchor onto that bottom. I'm wondering whether I should still sort of either transfer it over to the ISA or into interactive brokers and sort of just accept paying slightly higher prices, but we'll see. Compared to the markets, S&P was up 1.4% for the week, so a little bit better than that. And Nasdaq is up a bit less, 1.02%. So yeah, pretty happy with that, 5.6% up. So we've had Hive Digital's Q2, they call it Q1 2025 results, but it's Q2 2024 calendar year. And yeah, they've sort of had some reasonably good results. Obviously, this first quarter since the halving, they like a lot of sort of provocative artwork in their presentation. They're pushing on with their 100 megawatt hydroelectric data center in Paraguay. So they are still sort of pretty much totally focused on green energy to power these. They're not sort of into natural gas or anything like that as some of the other miners are, and they're wanting that to double revenue and increase hash rate from sort of 5.5 to 12 exahash in the next year. Not ideal. I'm not really happy with sort of expansions. Finishing middle of next year, we could be potentially at the top of the bull market then, and they're sort of finishing their expansion. Maybe not going into the bear market at that time, but there probably won't be that much left. So I'd kind of rather companies that had most of their sort of hash rate online, at least by the end of this year, which is sort of part of my larger position in CleanSpark, really. One thing I do like, even though they sort of only have 5.5 exahash, which is reflected in the market cap, of course, is that they're always pretty much top on the sort of performance metrics. So, Bitcoin mined per average active hash rate, they are top for June 2024. Slightly above Bit Digital, Iris, you have CleanSpark, sort of there or thereabouts, Core Scientific, but obviously you have Riot sort of right the way down the bottom. This is probably counting maybe not active hash rate, but yeah, some of their miners that are problematic and installed but not really hashing. So yeah, they're down the bottom. That should improve over time. Similarly, sort of utilization, 65% uptime, and Hive have 95%, which is very nice. CleanSpark being second there. And revenue by energized petahash, $1,595, so quite a bit above CleanSpark. They sort of squeeze a lot of juice out of what they do have. This is the presentation rather than the sort of actual, hard data. So there is a lot of sort of flashy presentation type numbers rather than, a cold balance sheet. But yeah, they've got sort of $32 million in revenue, 14.9 million EBITDA, which is pretty good. They don't do the sort of mark to market losses and gains that the other companies do, so that's why they sort of show a little bit better profit figures, and they probably, I think, were showing a little bit worse in Q1 because everyone else was marking their Bitcoin up and showing that as net profit. But yeah, being a sort of Canada-focused miner, they don't use the same rules. And yeah, produced 449 Bitcoin. Guessing that will probably go down slightly in Q3 because they had sort of 21 days of that quarter before the halving. And balance sheet, 25 million in cash, a little bit less than we would sort of really like, but it's a decent amount. And then obviously they have their reasonably large hodl, 153 million at those prices. I think it's more like, what have we got? I think we've got 2,550, and we have risen up to $64,000 now. So yeah, 163 million. Not too bad. 27 million in current liabilities. So the balance sheet is sort of well covered for liabilities. Yeah, that's just showing the sort of stark difference, I would say, between Canada and US reporting. Most of the companies were reporting a very large gain in Q1 and have been sort of showing losses for Q2. Hive are complete opposite. 3.3 million net income gain for Q2, where everyone else is sort of, because of the Bitcoin going down in value, reporting a net income loss. Operations wise, lovely awkward photo, awkward smile from Aidan there. So Bitcoin mined, obviously you had the halving in April, and it's dropped down to 119, 116. You had sort of difficulty increasing, but they're sort of slowly replacing old rigs with the brand new S21s, and yeah, they're not really sort of expanding all that much. Sort of hash rate is growing largely just through replacing those machines. And then they have the Paraguay expansion sort of over the next year. Frank Holmes sort of does say that they're very conservative, sort of very measured, and they won't sort of just dilute enormous amounts to expand like other companies have been doing. And that means that they sort of maintain corporate margin throughout the bear market. There is a lot of, obviously, this asterisks and corporate margin and adjusted EBITDA and that sort of thing. It's, they're not really making a fortune if you strip out certain things. Sort of all of these companies, report like adjusted figures in different ways and try and make it look like they're sort of doing really well. Hive do like to sort of compare themselves to the others on sort of various metrics as well. I think trying to sort of boost share price and boost exposure for them, basically. Sort of showing adjusted EBITDA, EV to adjusted EBITDA on an annualized basis from this quarter. That's quite a lot of qualifications, but they say they're at 2.6 times, and everyone else is sort of in, teens, double figures, but it is only one quarter. But I think 301 million market cap, they're sort of, I think 400 or so now, is still very good. As I say, enterprise value, once you take off that Bitcoin and cash off the balance sheet, 154 million. Again, it's probably about 254 now, but looking rather cheap still. Concern still is that a large sort of part of my position in Hive is options based on a $10 strike price, sort of basically assuming that they do really well over the next sort of year and a half in the bull market, and that they don't get acquired, because getting acquired would sort of throw an enormous spanner in the works. If people sort of paid 100% premium on their current price, it'd be sort of $8 or something, and or $7, and I presume my all of my options could potentially end up worthless, where the stock would be up sort of 100%. So yeah, that is a risk, being sort of very, very small market cap. People like Marathon might sort of think, oh well, that's dilute a little bit. They just raised sort of $250 million to buy a bit of Bitcoin. They could raise 250 to, or they could raise 400 or 500, I expect, and just buy Hive. They'll say next year we'll have 12 exahash from them, and they have the AI side as well. It seems like a good buy. So yeah, any one of these, well, a few of these firms could quite easily, I would say, make an acquisition. But Frank certainly sounds like he wants to hold off and sort of go his own way. Yeah, just highlighting their Paraguay expansion. They've switched to calendar years there, saying 12.1 exahash in Q3 2025, which, as I say, is a little bit late for me. I sort of don't know whether it would have been best to just stick with their sort of 5.5, maybe expand a little in their current sites if they could. This sort of, or buy something maybe so it's ready made. Yeah, I'm not a fan of a big expansion being done potentially at the end of the bull market, but there you go. So that's the enormous site in Paraguay, and yeah, that should bring them a decent amount of extra hash rate. And yes, this is what I think a lot of people are still forgetting, that Hive used to be one of the biggest public Ethereum miners in the world, and they've sort of repurposed a lot of those cards. They've been buying sort of brand new NVIDIA H100s and H200s, the brand new Blackwell ones, and yeah, they're sort of getting into high performance computing and AI. So they've sort of had this stair step of growth targets, and they are now at, or they did $2.6 million in revenue in the last quarter. So that is pretty solid. And so they've surpassed 250,000 a quarter and 250,000 a month, and they are now sort of the bulk of the way through 250,000 a week. That would be sort of $3.3 million. So they are almost at that, and the sort of next that is sort of a much bigger target is 250,000 a day, or well, I don't know whether they're counting calendar days or working days, but they have sort of mentioned before 100 million a year potential sort of run rate, and possibly more if they can do. So yeah, $100 million in revenue is sort of a huge add. And Frank does sort of highlight the fact that unless Bitcoin goes to stratospheric levels, I think he's sort of meaning probably 200,000, that the AI side is still potentially better margin. He says sort of 10 megawatts, booking 10 megawatts to AI is essentially like booking 100 megawatts to Bitcoin mining. Then, next year, if Bitcoin reaches, 150,000, 180,000, then obviously those numbers won't look so stark, but it's certainly interesting to have as a little sideline. And then we've had Pan American Silver's Q2 results. This was a little while ago, but it's sort of one of my less focused positions, I suppose. I just kind of leave it in the Interactive Brokers account. So they reported on August the 7th, and it's not all that good. They've sort of had some work on one of their sort of more silver focused mines, so production is down a bit, but they're sort of forecasting a reasonable amount for the second half. Gold side was sort of impacted by weather related issues, but the sort of the big thing for Pan American really is the potential for their Guatemala Escobal mine, which is sort of almost as big as the whole company itself, really, before they made this major acquisition. And it is still mothballed, basically. So they're in discussions with various sort of ministries and looking to get that back online. Obviously, if it was approved, it wouldn't be online straight away, but I think people would start to price it in, basically, the future revenue, and you would sort of get a decent bump in the share price. But yeah, they're certainly not my main focus, really, but I do keep them there for that sort of nameplate silver demand. We haven't really seen a huge outperformance from silver yet. I think if it does sort of really start going, then even if the production isn't really there, you'll see sort of a decent boost to sort of people like Pan American and Coeur Mining in my other ISA. So yeah, I think, as I say, people like KGHM obviously produce a lot more silver than Pan American, and they're sort of similar market cap, but they're not going to get the same love as, you know, a sort of US focused miner with silver in the name, and that's just the way the markets work, really. So we've had revenue up about 47 million from same quarter last year. Cost of sales up as well, but mine operating earnings it's up about 28 million. Still a net loss, 21 million. They do sort of have adjusted earnings, taking into account all sorts of stuff that probably shouldn't be adjusted from the sounds of it. Inflation adjustments from Argentina, which, you know, if they've had inflation adjustments, they have. You're operating there, and it isn't sort of likely to change anytime soon. So, yeah, not sure about this adjusted earnings figure. It sounds like they're adjusting too much. But net cash generated from operating activities, that is up a decent amount. And yeah, before changes in working capital, 203 million. Does sound like they're trying to paint a rosy picture on sort of what isn't so rosy. So production wise, they have, as I say, said this is reasonably down. They've had 4.56 million in total silver ounces for the quarter, and 220,000 gold ounces. All-in sustaining cost is up a fair amount because of that sort of lower production, really. But $19 all-in sustaining cost for silver, and 1,584 for gold. So not ideal, but they are still sort of firming their guidance for the year. So 21 to 23 million ounces of silver and 880,000 to a million ounces of gold. They did say sort of before they made this acquisition that it would turn them into a 30 million ounce a year silver miner and 1 million ounces of gold. So that is the very top end of their range on the gold, and way above their current guidance on the silver. So yeah, not quite achieving that just yet. We'll have to see what comes from next year. And forecast all-in sustaining costs are sort of to come a little bit down, 16 to 18.50 on the silver, which is pretty good. Sort of even, you know, silver at $29, and the gold at 14.75 to 15.75. So that's forecast to come down a little bit. And again, with gold in the 2500s now, that is rather good. Not sure why these forecasts keep sort of you know, having gold and silver at quite such a low level, sort of 23.50 for the year for silver, and 19.50 for gold. I mean, it pretty much started the year above that, and it's been sort of 2400 for quite a few months now, and they're still sort of forecasting it at that. So yeah, Equinox, I noticed, are doing the same. So I think there's potential for a re-rating of their sort of forecasted figures. So very little economic news this week, except the Jackson Hole symposium. This seems to have sort of overshadowed pretty much everything. It did start sort of middle of the week, I think, or sort of Thursday, but Friday was Jerome Powell's and some of the others sort of speeches, and yeah, he's basically sort of come out and said almost that the July FOMC was maybe a bit of a mistake. He has said they will do everything they can to support a strong labour market as they make further progress towards price stability. So focus is now on the labour market, and to ensure the US avoids a recession. So kind of, you know, implying that they've waited a little bit too long. Guessing this is due to sort of quite a number of things that have happened since the last FOMC. We sort of had some poor payrolls numbers. You had the yen sort of carry trade incident, which I guess he shouldn't really be watching, but that will have had an effect. And then you had this Bureau of Labour Statistics, 800,000 jobs. Less than they thought over the last year. So where they've been saying, we can't cut because the labour market's red hot, it hasn't been, basically. It's been sort of weaker than their numbers every month. Unemployment rising to 4.3% as well. Sort of, while historically low, it has caught their attention. Powell said the cooling in the labour market is unmistakable. And with that downside risk now increasing, he said the time has come for policy to adjust. So it's not as if they've made an emergency cut. He's meaning the September FOMC meeting. If the time is now to adjust, then they are still waiting for September to do it. But he's basically saying a cut is nailed on. It's just how much it is. He doesn't seem to be all that keen on a 50 basis point cut, but we'll see if things maybe get a little bit worse. Sort of to do nothing in July and then 50 basis points seems like sort of panicking / admitting that you should have done your cut in July, but we'll see. They want to protect the job market, of course. Got the next payrolls number on September the 6th, but yeah, we can start to sort of admit that these payrolls numbers are kind of bullshit, to be honest. But they'll see if any unwelcome further weakening does occur, and that could mean the difference between 25 and 50. And they did say, of course, because they've held off so long, the current level of their policy rate gives them ample room to respond to any risks they may face. Including the risk of unwelcome further weakening in labour market conditions. You could say that them holding off so long has caused this, so saying they have ample room to respond to risks that they have caused is not really sort of ideal, but there you go. So that sort of extremely dovish, rate cuts are definitely coming speech has sort of given a boost to pretty much everything. Not so much in this portfolio. Sort of the semiconductors doing okay and saw a little bit of a boost, but they've sort of been weak for a week or two now. But yeah, still holding on to Rio Tinto and Glencore. Sort of, as I say, if me option side and sort of crypto had have stayed a little bit low, I may have considered moving that cash and possibly selling Rio to buy a little bit more, but I may have missed the boat. So yeah, the sort of crypto side rocketed up yesterday. CleanSpark back to $12.60. That was sort of got down into the $10 range. Kur mining $6.36, pretty decent. Riot Platforms up to $8.50, not quite as much of a rise as the others. Equinox Gold was below $5, now $5.93, so rather nice. Little bump to Fortuna. And Hive Digital, that was sort of $3, below $3. I think that rose, 14.87% yesterday, so he's starting to get some love. Pan American and KGHM doing sort of reasonably well off the back of that as well. Copper has been sort of rising quite a bit, to be honest. I thought it might be looking to go below $4, but it's sort of risen up about 20 cents since it sort of was shirking with the $4 line, and yeah, things have sort of picked up reasonably well. And looking on the option side, so this has sort of rocketed up with gold, silver, and crypto moving up. So Equinox has gone into the green, was sort of a fair bit red, and is now by far the largest position. But I have sort of added a lot to that over the last few months, certainly 650 contracts now. So that's looking good. And sort of for the next year, I am very hopeful that that is going to balloon out. Coeur mining, sort of not quite so much really. There is sort of potential maybe if we got a bit more downside that because that's so much in the green and sort of is already had quite a lot of its move, that I may have taken a bit of profit on that and sort of put that into things like Hive and Equinox, but I don't know, may have sort of missed that opportunity, but Coeur's still looking okay. Bought a little bit more Hive, that's up to 12,400 and has gone in the green with that sort of large move up yesterday. I still think it's sort of reasonable value and sort of am considering continuing to add even at higher prices. I was buying at far higher prices sort of just a couple of months ago, so we'll have to see. Oh right, I have added 10 contracts to that, so that is sort of a bit less in the red than it was. These weren't the same. I have been sort of buying $20 strikes on Riot, and I bought some $35 strikes for the end of next year, or January 2026. So yeah, with them at $8.50, $35 is rather a lofty target, but yeah, obviously I'm predicting it sort of going much higher than that, so those options should do really well if Bitcoin goes to sort of the lofty 150,000 plus. Himax sort of still not doing particularly well. It's sort of reasonably well in the green, but I've not added. Obviously still a little bit unsure as to how well they'll do over the next year. Core Scientific back above 3,000, that's pretty good. And Fortuna sort of still not really getting the love. It's 41% down for me. Haven't really wanted to add to that or sort of average down. I still think Equinox and Hive have been looking better. So yeah, a little bit of cash still left there, and I do have quite a few thousand that I could add to it if things do drop down and maybe get one more go. Certainly sort of September is normally a red month for the markets, but every year is different, and we've got the US election coming up, so who knows? We'll see what the next month brings. So leave your thoughts in comments below. What you guys have been up to, if you're buying anything, and like and subscribe. See you soon.